So for denial, Mirabai says it's the soul's need for solitude. So when we go through an experience of loss, it's like the soul's way of saying, this is the most whole, like it's like the soul's knowing that something so deeply holy and sacred is actually happening, whether it's, loss of a person or a pet, or even we include like ancestral grief, and I include systemic trauma and grief, as well as heartbreak, of course, right? So it's like the soul's knowing for, like, I need actually to be alone right now. And of course that can turn into like a problem, and a problem meaning like we do need support from others, but that initial sense of knowing, like, this is a sacred thing that's moving through me right now that needs some time. The anger piece is really, validating in terms of the stage of transformation, is really about rebellion and protest. It's like, no, this isn't okay. And the interesting thing about like moving through the stages, like Matt was just saying, that's always true. Like no, I'm not accepting this, is still somewhere in us, even when we've moved into deeper layers of integration and acceptance, I believe, because I believe that protest is important. It's an important, like, rage is an important part of who we are and what helps us to create the transformation, that we're here to create in our lives, but also, in what we're here to do in the world. The bargaining, she talks about as remorse and lament, all the things we feel like we could have and should have done different, right? Depression, which in this case is not necessarily clinical. Clinical depression is a real thing, but it's more, it could be that, but it also a lot of times is like this soul collapse. It's like when we collapse, like we can't go on. It's like the reality and the soul's reality of surrender can look a lot like depression, and the honoring of that, and what that is for each of us. The sense of sorrow, when sorrow is just washing over us and moving through us. And then Mirabai talks about acceptance as the returning. So that phase where there's some integration, and we come back into a sense of center again. We're completely changed as a result of the experience of loss and whatever it was, but we return and we come back to a sense of new reality, and it's beautiful. It's like the beautiful part, of the experience of transformation through death, grief, and loss. So we really wanted to kind of hold some space for, the depression / surrender phase of grief today. And, for you, obviously, and also just the people in your lives. I mean, this is a time of year that I am always astonished if people can like experience all of December and not grieve. Like, I don't even understand that. Obviously, that's why we do these things. So, I think that soul weariness, and maybe we can take a moment, and we want to hear from people. Like the purpose of this space isn't just to teach, but it's to have you be witnessed. I teach and will teach a class on Friday that will share more embodiment practices and kind of visualization and meditation around grief and around what we're talking about. But in this class, it's like we have to and want to create, like Matt was saying, that space for you to be witnessed, and also kind of have that space to express, because that's the main thing that I believe turns a lot of these very natural, even when we grieve, natural phases of life as we grow and get older. It's like we're told from doctors that there's something like wrong with us, but it's really because we don't have these kind of spaces. Well, we do, but these kind of spaces are not built into our lives. We're not taught about grief when we're in school, and we don't have the space to like fully express and like run around screaming, like eating dirt, or like whatever, like whatever you feel in those primal moments of rage and grief. It's like it is insane, but it's like also, it's like sanity is the ability to recognize that those are natural states, that these are natural phases that we go through. And to have these kind of spaces it's beyond valuable. I mean, it's been for me in my life, and I know you too, otherwise you wouldn't be here. So let's take a minute, and you can either write in the chat and then we'll hear from people. Matt will facilitate that. But just write in the chat, your relationship to depression and surrender in this moment, or to collapse, or to soul weariness, like any one of those words, like depression, surrender, soul weary. What was the other one I said? Collapse.
Yeah, collapse.
Yeah, just any of those that you're like, how are you relating to any of those right now? Or how are you recognizing that in the world around you? And what do you think about that? And what's coming up for you around that right now? And you can take a minute to, you can write in your journal also, of course.